California Gold Rush. It glitters in our imagination, doesn't it? A period etched in history as a beacon of opportunity, a tale of fortune, adventure, and the promise of instant wealth. We envision lucky prospectors striking it rich, their lives transformed overnight by the gleam of gold. It's a narrative that has been romanticized and retold for generations, fueling dreams of striking it rich. But beneath the shimmering myth lies a harsher, far more brutal truth, a reality often obscured by the allure of easy riches. For most 49ers, the dream of gold was not a path to prosperity, but a fatal illusion, a siren song leading them to ruin. The vast majority who flocked to California seeking their fortune found only disappointment, hardship, and often death. Few, who journeyed west with stars in their eyes, ever returned home to tell their tales. Many didn't even survive their first year in the Golden State. The goldfields became their final resting place, their dreams buried alongside them. The journey itself was incredibly perilous, a gauntlet of disease, starvation, and treacherous terrain, claiming countless lives even before prospectors had a chance to reach California and stake their claim. The overland trails were littered with the remains of broken wagons, abandoned possessions, and unmarked graves. Those who miraculously arrived in California often found not celebration and riches, but unimaginable hardship in chaotic, unforgiving camps, hastily erected and utterly devoid of comfort or safety. These were not places of opportunity, but breeding grounds for despair. Disease, rampant malnutrition, and utter exhaustion, not dramatic shootouts or attacks by wild animals, were the true silent killers that decimated the ranks of the hopeful. Sickness spread like wildfire through the crowded, unsanitary camps. Poor sanitation, meager diets consisting of little more than beans and hardtack, and relentless, backbreaking labor turned these boomtowns into sprawling graveyards, monuments to shattered dreams and broken bodies. The gold rush wasn't a lottery where anyone could win. It was a brutal crucible that consumed nearly everyone who dared to enter its fiery depths. It demanded everything and gave back very little. The few stories of extraordinary success, like those of Sam Brannan, the shrewd businessman, or Levi Strauss, the inventor of durable work pants, are remembered precisely because they were so incredibly rare, shining exceptions to the rule of failure. For every single winner who struck it rich, thousands upon thousands vanished without a trace, their hopes and dreams lost forever in the muddy, unforgiving rivers and barren hills of California. Their true legacy is not one of glittering wealth and prosperity, but a somber, cautionary tale about the true, often devastating cost of chasing a gilded dream, a reminder that not all that glitters is gold. The ultimate price of the gold rush was not measured in gold dust or shiny nuggets, but in the countless lives that were tragically lost in its pursuit. The romantic legend of the gold rush endures, captivating our imaginations, but the stark reality was a desolate landscape of broken hopes, shattered dreams, and untold suffering. The California goldfields ultimately devoured far more than they ever rewarded. The real, unvarnished story is one of immense sacrifice, relentless struggle, and the tragically high price of chasing an illusion. The goldfields, with their promise of untold riches, presented dangers far more insidious than mere physical hardship. The greatest threat in the goldfields wasn't physical, it was psychological. It was a battle waged not against the elements or claim jumpers, but against the very fabric of the human mind. Isolation, disappointment, and relentless toil bred a darkness that consumed men from within. The vast wilderness, once a symbol of freedom and opportunity, became a prison of the mind. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months, with only the monotonous rhythm of pickaxe against rock and the ever-present gnawing of loneliness for company. This affliction, a slow erosion of the spirit, was universal among prospectors. It didn't discriminate between the seasoned miner and the greenhorn, the educated and the illiterate. It was a shadow that crept into every tent, every campfire conversation, every hopeful dream. Even in groups, the isolation persisted, a shared misery that offered little comfort. Day after day, men stood in freezing water, sifting mud for gold that rarely appeared. The icy grip of the mountain stream seeped into their bones, mirroring the coldness that was settling in their hearts. Each fruitless pan was a tiny hammer blow against their resolve, a whisper of doubt that grew louder with each passing hour. Hope curdled into despair, camaraderie faded into silence. The initial excitement, the shared dreams of striking it rich slowly dissolved into a bitter residue of resentment and disillusionment. The laughter around the campfire grew fainter, replaced by the crackling of the flames and the mournful howl of the wind. The camps were filled with men wasting away, not from disease, but from a profound melancholy. They were shadows of their former selves, their eyes hollow, their movements listless. The vibrant energy that had once characterized the gold rush had been replaced by a palpable sense of resignation. Doctors had no cure for this invisible sickness. Their remedies, effective against physical ailments, were powerless against the despair that gripped the minds of the prospectors. They could mend broken bones, but not broken spirits. Men lost interest in food, work, and life itself. The simple pleasures that had once sustained them, a hearty meal, a good story, the camaraderie of fellow miners, now held no appeal. They were adrift in a sea of hopelessness, with no land in sight. They were dying of hopelessness, a condition the era called nostalgia or melancholia. It was a longing for home, for family, for a life that seemed impossibly distant. It was a sickness of the soul, a slow and agonizing fade into oblivion. The true epidemic of the gold rush was not fever or scurvy, but the collapse of the human spirit. The graveyards that dotted the landscape were filled not only with victims of accidents and disease, but also with those who had simply given up, their dreams buried alongside them. The gold fields broke men long before they killed them. The relentless pursuit of wealth, the harsh conditions, and the crushing weight of disappointment took their toll, leaving behind shattered dreams and broken lives. The real horror was the silence that settled over the camps, as hope faded into the riverbed. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a testament to the devastating power of despair. The whispers of the river seemed to carry the lament of lost souls, a haunting reminder of the human cost of the gold rush. The California goldfields were a land of brutal contrasts. Summer brought searing heat and parched earth. Winter unleashed floods, mud, and deadly cold. Prospectors toiled under a blazing sun, then shivered through freezing nights in flimsy shelters. Standing waist-deep in icy streams, men endured numb limbs and chronic illness. The relentless cycle of heat and cold wore down both body and spirit. The land was not a partner, but an adversary. Every ounce of gold was won through pain. The beauty of the wilderness was lost on men fighting for survival. The environment demanded everything and gave little in return. The goldfields tested endurance to the breaking point. For most, the only reward was hardship. The goldfields, with their promise of untold riches, held dangers far more insidious than claim jumpers or treacherous terrain. The deadliest force wasn't a bullet or a blade, it was invisible. A psychological collapse that left men hollow, shells of their former selves. The isolation, the relentless pursuit of a dream that often remained just out of reach, chipped away at their sanity. Dreams of fortune, initially so vibrant and full of promise, gave way to monotonous, fruitless labor. The backbreaking work, day in and day out, yielded nothing but exhaustion and despair. The glint of gold became a distant memory. The gap between expectation and reality became a chasm, a seemingly unbridgeable divide that swallowed men whole. The shimmering vision of wealth dissolved into the harsh, unforgiving light of day. Men withdrew, retreating into themselves, stopped eating, their bodies and minds starved of sustenance, and stared blankly at the river, the very source of their hopes, now a mocking reminder of their failure. Their spirits broken, their dreams shattered into a million pieces. The weight of their dashed hopes pressed down on them, an unbearable burden. Comrades' encouragement, though well-intentioned, could not pierce the fog of despair that had enveloped them. Words of hope rang hollow in the face of such profound disappointment. This fate was worse than a violent death, a slow, agonizing erosion of the soul. To watch a friend's will to live simply vanish, to witness the light in their eyes fade away, leaving behind only emptiness. The camps were haunted not by ghosts of the dead, but by the living dead, by this silent predator that stalked the minds of men. Official causes of death, recorded in terse ledgers, were often starvation or exposure, the physical manifestations of a deeper malaise. But the true cause, the underlying reason for their demise, was a crushed spirit, a soul broken beyond repair. The goldfields claimed countless lives, not with the swift brutality of a gunfight, but with the slow, insidious creep of hopelessness. The real terror wasn't the lack of gold, but the emptiness left behind in its wake, the void that consumed men's souls and left them wandering aimlessly in the wilderness. As despair deepened, the goldfields changed men. Cooperation gave way to suspicion. Every neighbor became a rival. The pressure of failure corroded morals and hardened hearts. Honest men grew capable of desperate acts. Envy and jealousy turned camps into battlegrounds over scraps of gold. Disputes flared into violence. Trust dissolved. Even survivors were forever altered, guarded, cynical, and haunted. The goldfields tested not just strength, but the soul itself. Trauma lingered long after the gold was gone. The quest for riches left a permanent shadow in every survivor. In the darkest camps, a desperate practice emerged, a grim lottery among starving partners. When hope was gone, men drew lots. The winner received a merciful end, his share divided among the rest. This was not murder from malice, but a twisted act of survival. The pact was a secret, binding survivors in guilt and silence. It marked the collapse of all moral order. These stories survive only in whispers and confessions. The ultimate threat was not nature, but what men would do when hope was lost. The goldfield's darkest secret was the price men paid for survival. Rumors of these pacts reached California's first governor, Peter Burnett. Determined to impose order, he outlawed the practice, declaring it premeditated murder. The decree was clear. All participants would face the harshest penalties. Enforcing the law was nearly impossible in remote camps. Survivors protected each other with silence and false reports. Still, the decree drew a moral line in the sand. It condemned the darkness festering in the camps. Even if rarely enforced, it was a declaration that human life could not be gambled away. The law was a faint hope for civilization amid chaos. For the few who struck it rich, gold brought no peace. Wealth was tainted by memories of suffering and loss. Survivors returned home changed, unable to share the horrors they'd seen. Many spent their fortunes trying to forget, drowning trauma in luxury. But the scars ran too deep. Comfort brought no solace. Some ended in misery, haunted by the past. They survived the gold rush, but never escaped it. The true cost of gold was a piece of their soul. Today, the gold rush is remembered as a romantic adventure. But the real story is one of struggle, loss, and the high price of obsession. The land still holds the memory of hardship and unrecorded tragedy. The lesson is clear. The pursuit of wealth can lead down a dark path. The greatest wilderness is often within. The men of the gold rush were ordinary people in extraordinary hardship. The real treasure was resilience, and the warning their story leaves behind. The rivers flow on, carrying the quiet truth of the price of gold.